All right, Greg, let's start things off with a game that looks a lot better right now than it maybe did before the season started. It's early game right here on Fox, this week's Tom Brady game. My former home base of Arlington, Texas, I guess not technically Dallas, where you will be. It's the Dallas Cowboys hosting the New Orleans Saints. And let's start out there because I just said this game looks a little bit better than we might have thought. How much are we buying what I think was probably the most dominant performance of week one by the Saints? Like, was that more Saints or more about Panthers being bad? What do you think?
I think definitely a good part of that is Carolina's defense really looking rough, being hurt, being shorthanded when they're going to struggle when they're at full strength. So I think New Orleans looked great for a first game with a new coordinator. Derek Carr played well. Alvin Kamara ran the ball well. The offensive line held up. I think the pass rush they're going to face in Dallas is a little tougher than what they had against Carolina. But no, I mean, they put up 47 points and kind of eased off on the gas in getting to 47. So if they can do that again on Sunday, that'll go a long way towards a win.
I think that's the interesting part is like, yeah, I mean, the Saints were calling off the dogs by like halftime of this game. You know, like it's not even
30-0 at halftime.
It's not even like a full 60-minute sample size of Saints football. So in addition to not knowing, you know, like week one can be deceiving, it's not even a full game of week one. So I'm interested to see how this plays. You mentioned, I mean, Derek Carr played really well. The Saints offense looked as good as it has in the Derek Carr era last season, plus this one game. And the thing you mentioned, the Dallas pass rush, what was your takeaway of how the Saints held up? Because that's always been the question for this Saints team is if you can keep Derek Carr clean, you'll probably be pretty solid. If you can't, it might look kind of rough. You have any takeaways of how they held up in this game? And look, I know it's hard to project going against Micah Parsons and company, but how this might look in week two?
I just think for the Saints offensive line, the difficulty level goes from 1 to 10 in 1 week. And handling Carolina, I mean, you get up big to where you're not having to, I think you kind of run the ball as much as you want kind of thing. And now, I mean, maybe they get an early lead in Dallas, but I mean, that's probably the most formidable individual player and also a pretty heady front in general they're going to have to handle. It's still a fairly new line. Rookie left tackle looked good. Penning held up. So, I mean, they should go in with as much confidence as they can after one game because they played a really good game on offense. Defensively, they kind of held Carolina in check. I don't even know, again, if that says that much. But they'll have their hands full. I mean, this would be a huge win for them. They could pull it off. You know, Dallas is in a little different place where Dallas, you know, put up 33 points, but they got a special teams touchdown. You know, they probably want to play better offensively, even though they had 33 points. I think they had only 15 first downs. They weren't dominant offensively by any means.
I'll get to the Dallas offense in a minute, but I'm going to ask you to play coach for a second because it is interesting. You got rookie tackle Talisa Fuaga, the first round pick, making his second start on the road against a great pass rush. And you mentioned Trevor Penning as well, who has clearly had we'll call it a rocky start to his career since being a first round pick a couple years ago. If you're Dallas, which one of those matchups is more enticing to you? The highly touted rookie who has looked very good in this brief sample size, or the veteran who has been a bit of a problem spot?
I mean, it might be Penning. I mean, I think, you know, Fuaga, this is easily, you know, one of the biggest names he'll face all season. So, you might be able to hit him early and surprise him. But I mean, Penning is probably the more questionable one right now. He's changed sides, you know, has struggled at left tackle. Could very well, I mean, there's other instances where guys have switched sides and it's the answer is what they needed to click and play at a more functional level. But, you know, Dallas, this is one where, I mean, if I'm New Orleans, the first priority has to be keeping Carr upright, which means max protect, which means getting rid of the ball quickly, not letting that defensive front take over the game.
It's funny to see both of these teams kind of were able to call off the dogs at halftime. Really, I mean, I don't know how hard Dallas was trying to execute its full offense after that Cavante Turpin punt return in the third quarter against Cleveland. So it's going to be interesting if this game script stays neutral to see who has more success just running their bread and butter plays. I wanted to talk to you about the Saints secondary, which as of right now, we'll see what happens with Marshawn Lattimore. That's obviously a big thing to watch. He's dealing with an injury. He may not be available for this game. I don't know that the Carolina offense is a true test of their abilities, but I do think this is a group that can make life difficult on the Cowboys, especially when you consider, obviously, everything's going to go through CeeDee Lamb. I don't know if you shut CeeDee Lamb down, but do you agree with me? I think this is a group that can at least limit Lamb and make the rest of this Dallas offense pick up the slack.
No, I think that makes sense. Honestly, it's one of those where, I mean, again, if Lattimore's in there, that makes things more complicated. Their second safety spot in New Orleans is a bit of a question mark. I think they wanted to bring in Justin Simmons and couldn't do it. Jordan Howden, had an interception last week against Bryce Young, but again, it's a much more difficult challenge, even getting beyond CeeDee Lamb. I mean, I think we've talked about the lack of depth in terms of options there in Dallas. I mean, it's not just shut down CeeDee Lamb and you're done. I mean, I think they won on Sunday against a really good Cleveland defense without a lot of big plays. I think they had one play longer than 16 yards the entire game. I think Zeke rushed for 40 maybe. So they didn't have to do that much. This will be a closer game. This will be a game where both have to test themselves for 48 minutes in a way that, for 60 minutes, I should say. It's just a different challenge. Both of them won. I think what Dallas did is more impressive, even though Cleveland's offense didn't show very much. I think Cleveland's defense is still a really strong unit. So to get to where they got, where that's a 27-3 game and the game's out of hand, that win probably means more than dominating what's ultimately a bottom three bad Carolina team.
Yeah, and it seems like that's reflected when you look at everything for this matchup. I mean, the Saints won by 37 points, and the last time I checked, they're a touchdown underdog at AT&T Stadium. So plenty of people still thinking that the Cowboys have the upper hand in this. But I don't know. Like, I think, and of course, I'm going to look like an idiot when Dallas does their patented thing where, they get a couple takeaways early and, go up 14 or 17 points and just let Micah Parsons tee off. But I think this has the potential to be a really good test for them. The offensive line looked better at protecting Derek Carr, but on top of that, they ran the ball for 5 yards a pop against Carolina. I know it's Carolina, but at the very least, I think this is a more robust test of Dallas's run defense, which was such a problem for them last season.
Well, you think New Orleans scored 47, Dallas scored 33. That's 80 points between the two of them. This isn't really a high over-under. I think it's like a 45-point over-under, to where you kind of like the points. I think there'll be some scoring. Dallas had a special teams. There's the possibility of a defensive score in this game as well. So, no, I think it's one of those where New Orleans is going to have to score a lot to outpace Dallas in this game. But, if last week is a sign, if they can get, Rashid Shaheed deep and get another touchdown that way. Olave didn't do that much last week. There's more they can do. New Orleans got 2 touchdowns from tight ends, probably more from their run game than most people expected. So it could be that this is one of those where the secondary characters for each side, whichever one of them can step up and show and make plays, that could make it a different game.
I'm interested to see Taysom Hill's role in this game too. I think the last time he saw the Cowboys, he was playing quarterback and Micah Parsons was teeing off on him a few years ago. More of a complimentary player now. The Saints just continue to find fun ways to use this guy, and maybe he can play a role as a runner and a receiver. I'm sure they're going to come up with wrinkles to utilize him in this game, especially when you talk about keeping a pass rush off balance.
Right, absolutely. And he's a guy where, again, if week one, maybe you didn't want to get too complex in Kubiak's first game with a new team, you can start adding wrinkles. And he's definitely the first guy you think of with that. Barely threw passes last year. When he played quarterback, he was largely a threat to throw, but a guy that ran. But yeah, they've talked about using him much more elaborately. We didn't see a ton of that in week one, but he's, if you think about X factors and people that will at least make Dallas work harder defensively, he's the guy you can use to make their life harder defensively for sure.
I don't know how much it affects the matchup, but just a sneaky, intense game on the schedule too. I'm not going to go as far as to call it a rivalry, but I don't know if people outside the region realize, look, Dallas, Texas and Louisiana are right next to each other. Dallas is not far from New Orleans. There's a lot of Saints fans in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. There's a lot of Cowboys in Louisiana. So for a noon kickoff in week 2, I expect this game to have a little extra oomph to it. If past additions are any indicator.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, not far geographically. There's, a tropical storm or a hurricane going somewhere between now and Sunday. No, it's a game where, if you're New Orleans and you're trying to validate yourself as a team that will be for real, this does it in a way that beating Carolina by no score would do. There's not enough points you could put on the board against Carolina to really make a statement. If you go into Dallas and win, it's a statement win for New Orleans.
It's a very good point too. Hurricane Francine coming ashore as we're recording this. Best wishes to everybody in South Louisiana, all that region. Hopefully you come out of it safe and okay and can enjoy a very entertaining Saints Cowboys game on Sunday afternoon.